last Saturday night, about shortly after 10 p.m., we received calls initially at our OD's desk, which we think at this point was, we're still really trying to determine where the call initially went, whether it came into the 202 citizen number or 911. We're still working on that. But in any event, we received a call from the sister of Darrell Drayton, reporting that he had come into her home, her father's home, and had threatened her. We responded to the scene. A couple of deputies went to the house, interviewed the sister. Meanwhile, a description of Darrell Drayton was broadcast. Two deputies, Deputy Astic and Deputy Ryder, found Darrell Drayton at the end of Green Hill Road, stopped, attempted to talk to him and take him into custody. One of the officers attempted to handcuff Drayton. Drayton resisted, struck each of the officers and ran off into the woods, headed in the direction of Seaside Lane. They broadcast that fact and looked for him for about 15-20 minutes when he was observed on Seaside Lane. We have witnesses that had him at the back door of a residence on Seaside Lane. Individual interacted with him, saw that he had a knife at that point, tried to talk him into going home. Drayton made some comments in response to that, that he wasn't, and made threats to that individual against the police officers that he was not going, he was going to kill him. The deputies spotted Drayton on Seaside Lane, got out. Drayton had a number of papers in his hands. He was told to drop the papers on the ground. He was told to get on the ground. He refused to do so. When the guy shined flashlights on him, they observed a knife in his hands. He was told to put the knife down. He then made some threatening gestures towards himself. One of the deputies attempted to talk him out of hurting himself, trying to get him to put the knife down. We had witnesses that heard that effort. Other deputies arrived on the scene, surrounded him. We had at least 2 attempts with tasers that did not have any effect. We're still looking at that, trying to determine what happened, but there was no visible effect. Drayton then attempted to go into the little roadway there, path, confronted the police officers, cursed them, as the officers tried to deal with him with the tasers. In some manner stabbed the one officer in the puncture wound, and a slight puncture wound in the knee. And at that point, shortly thereafter, 2 officers fired, striking Drayton. And at that point, they called for EMS. One of the deputies went to his car, got his trauma kit, came back, attempted to assist Drayton in his injury. When EMS got there, he was found to have died. SLED is investigating it. What I have today is videos, various videos, in-car camera videos that we have, and the incident report. At the scene that night, there were a number of people obviously distraught over this incident. Some were expressed their dissatisfaction with the way it was handled, and was using profanity and roulette. Pretty much that those folks say and vent pretty much the way they wanted to. Chaplains arrived on the scene. I think a couple local ministers may even have been, one of them may even have been Mr. Drayton's minister, and others in the group attempted to keep the people calm, and I'm grateful for their assistance in that regard. That group of people never really presented any threat, and not perceived to be any threat. They were obviously distraught over what had occurred. Certainly made allegations that against the sheriff's office. I believe the video will help in regards to some of what has been alleged to have occurred, and quoted in the newspaper as saying at no time did he raise his hands to surrender, as was reported. This is really tragic and ironic in a couple ways. One of the comments that was made by someone in the crowd related to the incident involving individual Scott that we charged with murder in the case of Alexander Apps earlier the week. Both lived on this individual that we charged, and Mr. Drayton, both lived on Green Hill Road. Both have people who believe that the events that they were involved in, they find it hard to believe. In both instances, people relate about the fact that they went to church. We made an arrest based on the evidence we had in the case of Scott. SLED is investigating the incident involving Mr. Drayton. From what I have seen of the videos, this is an entirely different situation. This in terms of connection that the angry members of the crowd were making comments they were making. I don't know what was going on with Mr. Drayton. But in any event, he did not comply with the officer's demands to put the knife down, and was aggressive in his actions toward the deputies. I'll try to answer questions that you might have.
What kind of knife was it?
My sense of it was the blade looked to be about 6 or 7 inches long, maybe a kitchen knife.
How many times was he shot?
I believe the coroner's report talks about 7 wounds. I don't know that they've determined exactly which are entrance or exit wounds yet. Most of them on the left side, left arm, left chest, one in the back. I think in the video you can see that as he's shot, he spins around. We found, I think, 9 spent casings, and that's consistent with what was left in the magazines and the weapons of the officers that were involved in the
Sheriff, there were reports that the body was placed on a gurney and moved back to the scene.
I think initially EMS felt that there was an opportunity to save him, and their intent was to rush him back or rush him to the hospital. Then, however, died, and I think the sense of it was that he needed to be put back generally where he was found for evidentiary purposes.
Sheriff, a lot of members of the public don't seem to understand.
I don't know that a lot of people, I don't know what you base that on. Go ahead, Andrew.
Some members of the public don't
Yeah.
understand when a suspect has a knife and deputies have a weapon. But can you talk about the dangers someone presents with a knife as opposed, even though the deputies have a weapon, have handguns?
Have what?
Have handguns, obviously. Deputies have handguns, but it's still a dangerous
A knife
situation.
certainly is a deadly weapon. If you look at the homicides that occurred during the year, a significant number of those are committed with knives. In training at the academy, police officers are taught that if you get within that 20 feet or so, a person can get to you and cut you before you can react. I think these deputies made every effort to try to get Mr. Drake to drop the knife. And at the same time, keep him contained. They had already attempted to arrest him once, and he had resisted and fled. I think they were trying to contain him in an area, surround him to a certain extent, and that didn't work out.
So what about the taser? You said you were looking at it.
Well, there's no indication from what we've seen that we got the kind of response that you would expect to have if there was an appropriate deployment. In other words, both prongs hit within the kind of distance that would allow the effect of the taser to be felt. There's no indication that occurred. We don't know whether the tasers missed. There may have been the prongs too close together. One may have gotten caught in the shirt and jerked out, but we're still trying to analyze that. We have data from 3 tasers. One taser, we're not sure it really functioned at all. It showed a 1 second deployment, but SLED has those, and we're still trying to analyze what happened with the tasers. Tasers, like any other instrument that officers have, are not 100%. They don't guarantee that they're going to work in every set of circumstances. In order for the tasers to be successful, they have to make sufficient contact to deliver the charge, and it doesn't appear that occurred in this instance.
So we were told before he was shot twice, but it sounds like you're saying it was definitely more than 2 times.
We did not say that there was 2 shots,
Okay, maybe I misunderstood.
two people shooting. That we were fairly confident of. But as you may well know, in any case like this, once the person died, then it becomes a scene. The coroner, there's a good bit of time before the body is actually approached, so that you can make some initial decisions as to nature and the number of wounds and that sort of stuff. Only at an autopsy are you able to determine how many actual shots are.
Did the officer or one of the officers that shot have some kind of history?
Yeah, there was one deputy with a small, like the point of the knife, puncture wound in his knee, right above his knee. Went through the pants, into the leg. Not serious, but deeper than I think initially the EMTs on the scene saw.
But did one of the officers who shot at him have a history
No.
of shooting at other people they were arresting? I mean, I prior to that?
I'm not aware of that. We'll certainly be looking at that, but I'm not aware of that.
Did that require stitches, the wound, or?
I don't think it did. I think it was just deeper than initially was thought. And, he later went to the doctor and got a tetanus shot. And that's what.
Mr. Drayton had been in the jail before. There was an incident in the jail. Do you recall, or do you have information about his behavior at the jail?
We
If
have
he exhibited any signs of mental illness or anything like that?
well, we're still SLED will be looking at his whatever his mental history is. There have been charges made out of an attempt on his part to set I believe, a mattress on fire. He was charged and convicted with that, and assaulted some resisted arrest and assaulted some officers during that same time.
What's the status of the officers involved?
The two officers, primary officers that were involved in the actual shooting on administrative leave, which is customary practice, we certainly send out our sympathies to the Drayton family. A number of sisters, and I'm not sure how extensive the family is, but we certainly offer our condolences. It's a tragic situation. Police officers, by and large, become police officers to help out. And we had a call from a lady who was threatened, pretty serious threats. We've not gotten back with her after that initial interview. SLED will be re-interviewing her to get more insight. We got a statement from her that night, but in any event, Drayton threatened to kill her. Made a couple threats to do so inside the house and outside the house after he had left, banging on the window, threatening to kill her that night.
You mentioned he also made threats to the person whose back door he showed up at. What were the nature
No,
of
he
those
made
threats?
threats to the police that he was not going to go. He said, "Look, let me take you home." I think they probably recognized he wanted to take him home, didn't know the background of what had gone on. A lady had heard a noise at the back door. She called another neighbor, a relative, and the neighbor came over and saw Drayton at the back. He had the knife. Said, put the knife down, come on, let me take you home. And he refused and threatened he was going to kill the police. And that was about 5 minutes, we estimate, before deputies found him again on Seaside Lane. And it was on Seaside Lane that occurred.
Sheriff, at this time, are you all aware of any mental instability that he may have had?
We are going through the legal process, or SLED is, to determine what kind of psychiatric background he might have had, or substance use. He had some drug charges in the past. Don't know to what extent that might have played out or been a factor. Certainly, as part of the autopsy, the coroner, the medical examiner would have drawn a toxicology screen, and we'll look to see what that might show. That generally takes a couple of weeks to get the results of that back.
So the person who called, who I guess was his sister, had said that he had threatened to kill her, and that's why
Right.
she responded.
Initially, when police tried to handcuff him, it said in the previous report that he swung at them, but I think earlier.
Well, he hit one of them in the shoulder, and a female deputy that had a hold of him, he spun around. I think the way she described it, her hand got caught in his t-shirt, so she was going around, and during the process, I think he hit her, and then Seaside Lane.
Do you approach situations differently when you know it might be a situation where someone is trying to commit suicide, or the so-called suicide by cop?
Well, and that is that's a growing factor, I think, in some. Let me be a little more specific. In his threats to his sister, he included that he was going to kill her and then kill himself. I don't know that the deputies necessarily knew that part of it when they encountered him, but he held a knife on himself, on his stomach, and had pretended like he was cutting his throat with a knife. The female deputy on the scene, fantastic, attempted to, don't do that, you don't want to do that. And so we went into an effort to get him away from that process, and I think he transitioned from there to more of a threatening towards the officers. And I think you'll see some of that on the video.
Have you got a chance to look at the call history of this resident, or if he's been involved in anything?
There is a pretty significant history of calls involving the family, domestic disputes, both with allegations made against him, and then in some instances, I think, by him, against family members. But been a series of calls.
Would the officers note that he seemed to be under the influence of any kind of drug or medication?
They did not indicate that they picked up on that specifically. I don't know that the encounters were of sufficient length or closeness, with the exception of the first one, to really be able to determine particularly alcohol, whether or not they smelled it. There's been no indication that they smelled any alcoholic beverage on his breath. So there are a lot of questions for us as well yet. We look into this. SLED looks at it. We look at it from an administrative standpoint, and they look at it from the standpoint of whether or not the officer acted properly or criminally. And that's ongoing.
How do you determine if the officers will be taken off administrative leave? Is it based on what SLED finds, or do you do your own investigation?
Well, it's a combination of both. I think that certainly we look at the incident internally during the same time. I mean, we're looking at the videos, and we're looking at the background of the officer, those sorts of things. We have a very, I think, effective employee assistance program. They'll be referred, they've already been referred to that program. Of course, that includes their families. Police officers become police officers, their wives or husbands. They both have a general idea of some of the unique elements of being police officers, and that includes the potential for physical danger. But when something like this happens, it's very traumatic for the families of police officers too, to have, as the media sorts through this and has comments from other people that can be viewed as hurtful, and for a wife or children, we've got to be concerned about those aspects as well. This is something that it's not easy for police officers to deal with, or their families.
Do you have any idea how long this SLED investigation will take?
Excuse me?
Do you have any idea how long this SLED investigation will take?
No, ma'am. a lot of people to interview. They'll go back, even those that we've interviewed, and re-interview them. Just depends on the whole host of factors there. I'm not sure. Some of you have had experience with these sorts of things. They don't happen overnight. Well, thank you.
Thank you. Did you guys whisper and send it
Yeah.
Sorry, continue with the mic here.
Have a mic? They just laying Magic here on Rivers Avenue or something.
Wallace.
This is, I think everyone's on their mic. All right. Thank you, sir.